The first encounter. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before them. The U.S. Solis glided through the dark abyss, its sleek, imposing silhouette illuminated only by the distant stars and the faint glow of far-off nebulae. A serene silence enveloped the ship as it cruised toward the uncharted system. Inside the ship's command center, Captain Kira Donovan sat at her station, her eyes scanning the holographic star map projected before her. The mission ahead was unlike any other. This was not just a routine exploration. This was a journey into the unknown, a venture into the remnants of a long-dead star system. It was the first time in history that humanity had ventured this far beyond their colonies. No other race had visited this part of space for millennia. Not since the mysterious fall of the Arcturian Empire. The Arcturians were an enigmatic species, shrouded in myth, whose history had been lost to time. Few had dared to explore their forgotten ruins. Fewer still had lived to tell the tale. "Captain, we're approaching the system." Lieutenant Malik's voice crackled over the comm, snapping Kiara from her reverie. "Understood, Malik," she replied, her voice calm but laced with the weight of their mission. "Prepare the team. We'll need full scans of the area once we enter the system. We're going to need all the data we can get." Kiara's mind raced as she glanced at the readouts on her console. The Arcturians were rumored to have been masters of strange, dangerous powers, abilities that defied the very laws of science. Some called it magic. Others called it an advanced form of energy manipulation. Regardless of what it was, one thing was certain: it had been sealed away for a reason. Legends spoke of powerful artifacts hidden across the stars, relics of an ancient time when the Arcturians ruled the galaxy. It was these artifacts that had drawn Kiara and her crew to this dead system. The ship began its descent into the heart of the system, and Kiara felt a tension tighten in her chest. The stars around them were distant and cold, their light faint as they passed through the outer edge of the system. The once thriving star that had illuminated the system was now little more than a dim ember, its dying light casting long shadows across the moon-dusted surface of its desolate planets. "We're entering the system now," Malik said again, this time with a hint of awe in his voice. Kiara leaned forward, her fingers brushing over the console as she adjusted the ship's sensors. The readings were weak. The system was devoid of life, the planets barren. Yet there was something strange about the readings, a faint, flickering signal coming from the surface of one of the moons. It was weak, barely perceptible, yet it was there. Kiara's instincts flared. That signal was not natural. It was something else, something deliberately hidden. "Scan that moon," she ordered, her voice sharper now. "That's where we need to go." The ship's sensors pulsed as they zeroed in on the moon. A long-abandoned ruin sat on its surface, a vast structure buried beneath layers of dust and debris. No records had ever indicated that a structure like this existed in the system. It was not on any star map. No ancient records had mentioned it. It was as if the structure had been deliberately erased from history. Kiara couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting for them, and the signal they had traced was the first sign of life, albeit from a long-dead past. "Preparing for shuttle launch," Lieutenant Malik said, his voice calm despite the tension in the air. Kiara gave him a quick nod. The shuttle bay doors opened with a low hum, and the shuttle descended from the belly of the Solis, cutting through the thin atmosphere of the moon. The shuttle's thrusters glowed bright, and Kiara could feel the vibrations as it cut through the cold air. The team inside remained silent, each person fully aware of the gravity of what they were about to discover. The barren landscape below seemed almost alive with mystery. Jagged mountain ranges stretched far beyond the horizon, and the surface was pocked with craters and ancient scars. It was a world that had once been a thriving colony, a place full of life. But now it was a graveyard of forgotten ambition. Its once beautiful structures crumbled into the sands of time. Kiara's heart raced as she watched the surface below, her mind already imagining what they would find. As the shuttle touched down with a soft thud, a strange sense of anticipation gripped Kiara. They had arrived at the source of the signal. As the doors of the shuttle opened, Cold air rushed inside, but it wasn't just the temperature that made Kiara's skin crawl. It was the silence. The kind of oppressive silence that only exists in places untouched by time. She led the team out into the dust-covered surface, her boots sinking slightly into the ground. The structure ahead of them was colossal, impossibly so. The stone seemed unnaturally dark, like it absorbed the very light around it. In the center of the structure was an archway, long forgotten by time, its surface covered in alien symbols that seemed to pulse faintly. The doorway beckoned, as though it had been waiting for them to arrive. Kiara's breath caught in her throat. "This isn't just a ruin," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft hum of the shuttle's engines as they powered down. This was a place of significance. This was a temple. Malik nodded gravely, his eyes scanning the strange architecture around them. "I've never seen anything like it. It's not just ancient. It's alive in some way. The way the stone shifts, how the symbols are, breathing." Kiara stepped forward, her boots crunching against the surface as she approached the archway. She could feel the air around it vibrating, as if the structure was alive. The symbols on the stone wall seemed to shimmer, their light flickering in a pattern that made her uneasy. They were not written in any language she recognized. They were something else entirely, something older. "What's the plan, Captain?" Malik asked. Kiara didn't take her eyes off the archway. "We move inside. We need to find the source of the signal. Stay close. And be careful. This place isn't just a ruin. It's a tomb." As the team entered the archway, the temperature dropped dramatically, and the air grew thick with the weight of history. The walls seemed to close in around them, and Kiara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being washed. At the center of the vast chamber, something glowed, a crystalline object, pulsating with a faint blue light. It was mounted on a pedestal, its surface covered in more of those strange symbols. Kiara approached cautiously, her hand reaching out to touch it. But before her fingers could make contact, a voice echoed in her mind, low and resonant. "Welcome, travelers," it whispered, a voice that felt ancient and cold. "You have awakened what was never meant to be awakened. You seek power, but power comes with a price." Kiara froze. Her hand stopped just inches from the crystal. The words reverberated in her skull, their meaning clear, yet terrifying. "We have awakened something," she murmured, her voice shaking. And in that moment, she realized the truth. They were not just here to uncover the past. They had unleashed a force far beyond their understanding. The awakening. The chamber felt alive in ways that defied logic. Kiara stood frozen, her hand inches from the glowing crystal. The voice that had echoed in her mind lingered in the air, its weight pressing down on her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that the very walls of the ancient structure were watching them. She glanced at Malik, his face pale, his breath shallow. He was clearly as unsettled as she was. "What was that?" Malik whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Kiara replied, her voice strained. "But I think we've just awoken something we weren't supposed to." The crystalline object before them hummed softly, its pale blue light flickering like the heartbeat of the ancient ruins themselves. The symbols surrounding it were etched into the pedestal with a precision that spoke of an intelligence far beyond human understanding. They seemed to shift slightly in the dim light, as though reacting to their presence. Kiara hesitated, every fiber of her being telling her to step away, to leave the chamber and return to the shuttle. But something deep within her wanted to understand it. She couldn't explain it. She had always prided herself on being a scientist, grounded in logic, but this place, this artifact, defied explanation. "Captain," Malik's voice broke through her reverie. "We need to leave. This doesn't feel right. I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone." Kiara turned to face him, her gaze unwavering. She could sense Malik's fear, but there was something more pressing. The voice. That voice had been so clear, so deliberate. It had spoken directly to her, reaching into her mind. It was a warning, but also an invitation. The ancient Arcturians, whoever they were, had left something behind in this place, something that was more than just a relic. It was alive, and it was waiting. "We're not leaving," Kiera said firmly, her voice cutting through the growing tension. "We're here for a reason. This, whatever this is, it's important. We need to understand it." Malik stared at her, his expression conflicted. "Captain, I've seen things. I've been on missions where we discovered things that shouldn't have been uncovered. We're not prepared for this." Kiera took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. She knew Malik was right in many ways. This was uncharted territory, ancient, alien, dangerous. But her curiosity, her duty to uncover the truth, overruled her caution. "I'm aware of the risks, Malik," she said, her eyes returning to the crystal. "But we're already this far. We can't turn back now." As if on cue, the crystal pulsed with a sudden burst of energy. A shockwave rippled through the chamber, knocking everyone off balance. Kiera stumbled, grabbing onto the pedestal for support. The lights flickered, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. The symbols on the walls flared to life, glowing bright, their meaning shifting before their eyes. The air thickened, vibrating with energy, and the hum of the crystal grew louder. A sharp, metallic sound rang through the chamber. The walls, which had once seemed still and unyielding, now began to shift. Slowly, like a massive mechanism coming to life, the stones of the chamber started to slide and rearrange, revealing hidden passages. Kiera's heart raced as she watched the stone walls slowly move, revealing an even deeper layer of the structure, one that had been concealed for eons. "What the hell is going on?" Malik asked, backing away from the shifting walls. Is this some kind of trap?" Kiera couldn't answer. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together the events that were unfolding before her. It was as though the entire structure had been waiting for them to make this very choice, to come this far. The walls opened, revealing a dark passageway leading deeper into the ruins. The crystal pulsed again, its light now blinding. Kiera squinted, feeling an inexplicable pull toward it, as though the very fabric of reality was bending around the artifact's energy. She glanced at her team. They stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. "We have to go in," Kiera said, her voice filled with a mixture of resolve and fear. "This is the next step. The Arcturians left us a message, and I'm not leaving until I understand it." Malik hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Captain, if you insist, but I don't like this. I really don't." With that, Kiera led the way into the passage. The walls of the tunnel seemed to constrict around them as they moved deeper into the heart of the ruin. The air grew colder, the oppressive silence returning with a vengeance. Each step echoed off the stone, amplifying the eerie stillness. The further they went, the more Kiera felt the presence of something, watching, waiting. She couldn't explain it, but the sense of being observed only grew stronger. At the end of the passage, they reached a massive chamber. This room was unlike anything they had seen so far. The floor was covered in a strange, translucent material, which seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. The walls were adorned with murals, depicting scenes of an ancient civilization. In the center of the room stood a grand altar, and above it hovered another crystal, even larger than the one they had found before. This one was dark, its energy pulsing with a menacing intensity. It was surrounded by a series of intricate symbols, floating in midair, seemingly suspended by some invisible force. The moment they stepped into the room, the crystal reacted. It began to hum, low and deep, vibrating through the very air. Kiera felt the vibrations in her bones, a constant, gnawing pull toward the altar. She stepped forward, almost involuntarily, as if some unseen force was guiding her. "This is insane," Malik muttered, his voice filled with awe and fear. "We shouldn't be here. We need to leave now." But Kiera couldn't move. She was rooted to the spot, her eyes fixed on the crystal. It was as though it had called her. And as she gazed into its depths, something changed. A vision, no, a memory, flashed before her eyes. She saw a vast city, towering spires of dark stone reaching into an alien sky. The Arcturians, tall, elegant beings, their faces shrouded in shadow, stood in a great hall, chanting in a language long forgotten. The crystal in her vision pulsed with power, its light illuminating their faces. But as she watched, the scene shifted. The city crumbled, the spires shattered into dust, and the beings were consumed by their own creation. The crystal, the source of their power, became a beacon, its light growing brighter, more intense, until it swallowed the city whole. Kira gasped, pulling back from the vision. She stumbled, her knees weakening beneath her. The crystal had shown her the fall of the Arcturian Empire. It had destroyed them. The same power that had once elevated them to unimaginable heights had also been their undoing. A voice filled the room, louder now, echoing around them. "You have seen it, the price of power. Do you still seek it, traveler?" Kira's breath caught in her throat. The voice wasn't just in her mind anymore. It was real, reverberating through the chamber. She looked around, but there was no one there. Just the crystal. And the words that seemed to come from it. "We have no choice," Kira whispered. "We're too far in. The price of power." The air in the chamber felt thick, almost oppressive, as the voice echoed through Kira's mind. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a presence. Something ancient, something beyond comprehension. The words hung in the air like a threat, a warning, yet they were almost inviting. Kira could feel the pulse of the crystal beneath her fingertips, a soft, rhythmic beat that seemed to synchronize with her own heartbeat. Her body tensed as the weight of the vision washed over her. The fall of the Arcturian Empire. Their hunger for power. Their tragic, self-inflicted destruction. "We're too far in," she whispered again, barely able to breathe. Malik's voice cut through the thick silence, panic rising in his tone. "Captain, this isn't just a relic. This is a weapon. We have to get out of here. Now." But Kira couldn't move. Every instinct in her told her to step back, to leave before the power of this place consumed them. Yet her curiosity, her obsession with uncovering the truth, held her in place. It was as though the structure itself had claimed her, her mind tangled in its ancient allure. "We can't leave," Kira said, her voice firm, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. She wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Malik or herself. "We've uncovered something bigger than we ever imagined. The Arcturians didn't just disappear. They destroyed themselves. This crystal, it has the power to destroy and to create. We need to understand it." Malik stared at her, fear etched across his face. "You're not listening to yourself, Captain. Whatever this is, it's not something we can control. The Arcturians, they didn't just vanish. They were wiped out by their own hubris. They thought they could harness the crystal's power and use it for good, but they were wrong." Kira turned toward him slowly, her gaze piercing. She could feel the truth in Malik's words, but the lure of discovery was stronger than the fear. Her mind churned with the implications of what they had uncovered. Then we'll be the ones who succeed where they failed. We'll learn from their mistakes. Malik didn't respond. He only shook his head, his hand clenching the weapon at his side in a tight, nervous grip. Kira could tell he wasn't convinced, but there was little that could stop her now. She had to know. The truth was right in front of her, just within reach. Kira stepped closer to the altar. The crystal above it pulsed with an eerie glow, its surface reflecting the faint light of the room in unsettling ways. As she moved closer, a low hum reverberated through her bones. It was as if the crystal was calling to her, beckoning her to claim it. The presence in the room grew stronger, more tangible, pressing down on her shoulders, urging her forward. A low, rumbling sound filled the chamber. The symbols that floated around the crystal flickered and shifted, glowing brighter. They began to form new patterns, their meaning just out of reach. The language was alien, yet somehow familiar, as though it had been written in the back of her mind for centuries. Kira's eyes darted to the walls, to the murals that depicted scenes of the Arcturians, beautiful, ethereal beings that seemed to move with purpose and grace. But as she followed the murals, the images grew darker, twisted. They showed the destruction of their civilization, the flames of war, the fall of their greatest cities, and the desperate attempts to control the very forces they had unleashed. Kiera swallowed hard. What did they do? The crystal's hum grew louder, more insistent. A beam of light shot out from the center of the crystal, striking the ground before her feet. Kiera's breath caught in her throat as the floor trembled beneath her, and the air around her became charged with energy. The crystal's light intensified, filling the room with an unnatural brightness. "Do you seek power?" The voice echoed again, its tone deep and resonant, almost sorrowful. It was as though the crystal itself was aware of their presence, aware of their intentions. "We do," Kiera replied, her voice steady, even though her heart raced in her chest. "We seek knowledge. We seek to understand." The light from the crystal seemed to pulse, responding to her words. The room filled with a sense of urgency, as though something was stirring, awakening in response to their desires. The walls around them began to shift again. But this time, the movements were more deliberate, more violent. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling, and the structure groaned as if it were a living being in agony. Malik stepped forward, his hand outstretched, as if to stop Kiera from moving closer. "We're playing with forces we don't understand, Captain. We're opening a door that we can't close. You've seen the murals. The Arcturians thought they could control this, but they failed. They destroyed themselves in the process." Kiera turned to him, her eyes hard. "I'm not them, Malik. We won't make the same mistakes." But even as she spoke those words, a doubt flickered in her mind. What if they were repeating the same mistakes? What if their obsession with power would lead them down the same path of self-destruction? A sudden crash echoed through the chamber, and Kiera spun around. The pedestal holding the crystal was shaking, as if something was struggling to break free. The energy in the room was becoming unbearable. The light from the crystal flickered, and then, with a sudden burst, the entire chamber went dark. For a split second, there was nothing but silence. And then, a deep, rumbling voice, far more powerful than before, filled the room. "Foolish travelers, you have awakened me. The price of your curiosity is now paid." Kiera staggered back, her heart pounding in her chest. The temperature in the chamber had dropped dramatically, and the air had become thick with an oppressive presence. The walls, once ancient and silent, now seemed alive with anger. The voice continued, its tone reverberating through her very bones. "You seek knowledge, but you will not be able to bear the truth. You will see what was hidden from the stars, and you will witness the price of power." The ground beneath their feet rumbled violently. Kiera's vision blurred, the room spinning around her as the energy from the crystal surged uncontrollably. The murals on the walls flickered again, this time showing scenes of unimaginable devastation. The Arcturians, once a proud and mighty civilization, were brought to their knees by their own creations. Entire cities were torn apart, their people consumed by the very forces they had summoned. Kiera fell to her knees, the weight of the vision crashing into her mind. She could see it now, feel it. The Arcturians had not just harnessed the crystal's power, they had been consumed by it. It was not a tool to be wielded. It was a force, uncontrollable, deadly. Malik was at her side now, his hands shaking as he reached out to help her up. "Captain, we need to get out of here. This place, it's cursed. It's never meant to be opened." Kiera's eyes met his, her body trembling. The truth was staring her in the face now. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The crystal wasn't a source of power, it was a prison for the destructive force that had once annihilated an entire race. The Arcturians had sealed it away for a reason. But it was too late. "We can't escape it, Malik," Kiera whispered, her voice hollow. "We've already awakened it.